Strangers broke into her mansion at midnight. He saved her life. Emotional love story. The sound of breaking glass. Welcome to Heartbound Ashes. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more emotional stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The sound of shattering glass cut through the silence of the Vermont estate like a gunshot. Sarah Mitchell's eyes snapped open in the darkness, her heart hammering against her ribs. For 3 seconds she lay frozen in her bed, listening. The grandfather clock in the hall ticked steadily. The wind whispered against the windows. And then she heard it again, footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from downstairs. She wasn't supposed to be here. The estate belonged to her late aunt, a woman Sarah had met only twice in her 30 years. But 3 weeks ago, a lawyer's letter had arrived, informing her that she'd inherited everything. The sprawling mansion, the surrounding 40 acres, and a trust fund that made her dizzy just thinking about it. She'd taken a leave from her teaching job in Boston and driven up alone to sort through decades of possessions and decide what to do with it all. Now someone was in her house. The stranger in the dark. Sarah's hand trembled as she reached for her phone on the nightstand. No signal. The estate's spotty cell service had been frustrating during the day, but now it felt like a death sentence. She slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor, and grabbed the only weapon she could find, a heavy brass candlestick from the dresser. The hallway stretched before her, dark except for the pale moonlight filtering through the windows. She crept toward the stairs, every muscle tense, the candlestick raised. Her breath came in short, quiet gasps. At the top of the stairs she paused, listening. A beam of light swept across the foyer below. Flashlight. Whoever was down there wasn't trying to hide anymore. Hello. Sarah's voice cracked. I've called the police. They're on their way. The light stopped moving. Silence pressed down on her like a weight. Then a voice, deep and unmistakably male, echoed up from below. No, you haven't. There's no cell signal up here, and I cut the landline an hour ago. Terror flooded her veins. Sarah turned to run back to her room, but before she could move, the man spoke again, and this time his tone was different. Urgent. Almost protective. Wait. Don't run. I'm not here to hurt you. But if you don't listen to me right now, someone else will. A warning in the night. Sarah's legs wouldn't move. She stood paralyzed at the top of the stairs, the candlestick shaking in her grip. The flashlight beam angled upward, and she caught her first glimpse of him. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark tactical gear. His face was partially obscured by shadows, but she could see the sharp line of his jaw, the intense focus in his eyes. My name is Nathan Cross, he said, his voice steady and commanding. I'm a private security consultant. Your aunt hired me 6 months before she died. I've been monitoring this property ever since. That's insane, Sarah whispered. Why would she? Because she had enemies. Nathan cut her off. Powerful ones. And now that you've inherited everything she owned, those enemies are yours too. Sarah's mind reeled. Her aunt had been a recluse, a woman who'd made her fortune in real estate and lived alone in this isolated mansion. What kind of enemies could she possibly have had? I don't believe you, Sarah said, but her voice lacked conviction. Nathan took a step toward the stairs. 3 days ago, someone accessed the county records and pulled the deed transfer for this property. Yesterday, a black SUV with tinted windows drove past the estate twice. And tonight, at 11:47 p.m., I detected movement near the south fence line. 2 men. Armed. They're cutting through the woods right now, heading this way. The choice she never expected. Sarah's blood turned to ice. You're lying. I wish I was. Nathan's expression was grim. You have 2 choices, Sarah. You can stand there with that candlestick and wait for them to break down your door. Or you can trust me, and I'll get you out of here alive. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to call for help, to do anything but trust this stranger who'd broken into her house in the middle of the night. But something in his voice, in the way he held himself, made her pause. There was no malice in his eyes, only determination. Why should I trust you? She asked. Because your aunt trusted me, Nathan said quietly, and because in about 90 seconds you're not going to have a choice. As if summoned by his words, a sound drifted through the night, the low rumble of an engine growing closer. Headlights swept across the trees outside. Nathan's jaw tightened. They're here. Decide now. Into the unknown. Sarah's heart felt like it would burst from her chest. Every rational thought told her this was madness, that she should barricade herself in her room and wait for dawn. But the fear in Nathan's eyes, the first real emotion she'd seen there, told her everything she needed to know. Okay, she breathed. What do we do? Nathan moved with startling speed, taking the stairs 3 at a time. Up close, he was even more imposing, 6'3", built like a soldier, with dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. He grabbed her arm not roughly, but with enough urgency to propel her into motion. There's a service exit through the kitchen. My truck's parked in the woods half a mile north. We move fast, we move quiet, and we don't stop until we're off this property. Understood? Sarah nodded, her throat too tight to speak. They were halfway down the stairs when the front door exploded inward with a thunderous crash. Wood splintered. Glass shattered. And through the wreckage stepped 2 figures in black masks, guns raised. Nathan shoved Sarah behind him, his body a wall between her and the intruders. His voice dropped to a growl that sent shivers down her spine. Run. Now. But Sarah couldn't move. Because in the chaos, in the split second before Nathan pushed her toward the kitchen, she'd seen something that made her blood run cold. The tattoo on the lead intruder's wrist. A distinctive phoenix rising from flames. She'd seen that exact tattoo before. In a photograph on her aunt's desk, on the wrist of a man standing beside her aunt at some formal event, both of them smiling. Whoever these people were, they weren't strangers to her aunt. They were family. The phoenix burns twice. Sarah's scream died in her throat as Nathan yanked her backward through the kitchen doorway. A gunshot cracked through the air, splintering the doorframe inches from where her head had been. Her ears rang with the percussion, her legs moving on pure adrenaline as Nathan pulled her through the darkness. The basement, he hissed, shoving her toward a door she'd barely noticed during her 3 weeks in the house. There's a tunnel. Your aunt showed me. Wait, Sarah gasped, but Nathan was already pushing her down the steep wooden stairs. Behind them, heavy footsteps thundered across the kitchen floor. Shouts echoed through the mansion. The basement smelled of earth and old stone. Nathan flicked on a small tactical flashlight, the beam cutting through absolute darkness. He moved with the confidence of someone who'd memorized every inch of this space, guiding her past ancient furnaces and forgotten furniture to a corner where the stone foundation met packed earth. Help me, he commanded, already pushing against what looked like a solid wall. Sarah pressed her hands against the cold stone, and to her shock, a section swung inward on hidden hinges, revealing a narrow tunnel that disappeared into blackness. Secrets buried underground. Your aunt was paranoid, Nathan said, his voice tight as he ushered Sarah into the tunnel. Now I understand why. They moved through the passage in silence, the only sounds their ragged breathing and the scrape of their feet on the uneven ground. Sarah's mind spun with 1,000 questions, but fear kept her focused on putting one foot in front of the other. The tunnel seemed to go on forever, sloping gradually upward until finally, Nathan stopped at another concealed door. He pressed his ear against it, listening. Then, satisfied, he pushed it open. They emerged into a small maintenance shed hidden in the woods, exactly as Nathan had promised. Through the gaps in the wooden slats, Sarah could see the mansion in the distance, lights blazing in every window. Dark figures moved past the windows like shadows. My truck's this way, Nathan whispered, taking her hand. His grip was warm, solid, anchoring her to reality when everything else felt like a nightmare. They ran through the trees, branches clawing at Sarah's nightgown. She'd left everything behind. Her phone, her clothes, her entire life packed into boxes upstairs. All she had was the thin cotton on her back and this stranger whose hand held hers like a lifeline. The truth in his eyes. Nathan's truck was an old Ford, painted forest green and covered in a camouflage tarp. He ripped the tarp away and practically threw Sarah into the passenger seat before jumping behind the wheel. The engine roared to life, and they were moving, tires spitting dirt as they bounced down an overgrown service road. Sarah finally found her voice. The tattoo. The phoenix. I saw it in a photo with my aunt. Nathan's jaw clenched, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Who was in the photo? I don't know. A man. They were at some charity gala. He had his arm around her, and they were smiling. Sarah's voice cracked. Nathan, who were those people? For a long moment Nathan said nothing. The truck hit the main road, and he turned north, away from town, away from anything familiar. Finally he spoke, his voice rough with something that sounded like regret. Your aunt's name was Catherine Mitchell. But 30 years ago, she was Catherine Volkov. The name hit Sarah like a physical blow. Volkov? As in the Volkov crime family. She married into it young, Nathan continued, his eyes fixed on the dark road ahead. Viktor Volkov. He was brutal, but she didn't know that when they fell in love. By the time she realized what kind of man he really was, she was already trapped. She spent 15 years planning her escape, stealing evidence, building a case against him. When she finally ran, she took enough information to put Viktor and his entire organization away for life. A past that never dies. Sarah's hands trembled in her lap. She testified against him? She was the star witness. Viktor got 40 years. But his brother Alexei, the man in that photo, he got away. The FBI could never make anything stick to him. He's been searching for Catherine ever since, convinced she has something more. Something worth killing for. What? Sarah breathed. Nathan's expression was grim. Offshore account numbers. Codes to safe boxes in 3 countries. Your aunt stole $40 million from the Volkovs before she disappeared. The FBI never found it. Neither did the Volkovs. But they think you know where it is now. Sarah's world tilted. I don't know anything. I barely knew her. They don't believe that. Nathan took a sharp turn onto a side road, checking his mirrors constantly. And they won't stop until they get what they want. Tears burned Sarah's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. How do you know all this? Who are you really? The protector's secret. Nathan was quiet for so long that Sarah thought he wouldn't answer. Then finally he pulled the truck onto a narrow dirt road that wound up into the mountains. He drove for another 10 minutes before stopping in front of a small cabin, invisible from the main road, surrounded by dense forest. He killed the engine and turned to face her. In the dashboard light his features were sharp, haunted. I was FBI. Undercover, embedded in the Volkov organization for 3 years. Your aunt was my handler's key witness. I was supposed to protect her during the trial. Supposed to. Pain flickered across Nathan's face. Someone leaked that I was undercover. The Volkovs found out. They sent a hit squad to the safe house where Catherine was staying. I got there 30 seconds too late. 3 agents dead. Catherine barely escaped with her life. Sarah's chest tightened. That's why she hired you. Why she trusted you. I failed her once, Nathan said, his voice raw. I wasn't going to fail her again. After the trial, after she disappeared and changed her identity, I left the bureau. I've been watching over her ever since, from a distance, making sure the Volkovs never found her. But they did find her, Sarah whispered. Nathan nodded slowly. 6 months ago, someone inside law enforcement sold Catherine's location to Alexei Volkov. She knew she didn't have much time. She called me, asked me to make sure you were protected if anything happened to her. The weight of inheritance. She died of a heart attack, Sarah said numbly. That's what the lawyer told me. That's what the coroner ruled, Nathan said carefully. But your aunt was healthy. She exercised every day, ate well, had regular checkups. A heart attack at 62. He shook his head. I've always suspected Alexei got to her somehow. Poison, maybe. Something that wouldn't show up in a standard autopsy. The horror of it washed over Sarah in waves. Her aunt, a woman she'd barely known, who'd sent birthday cards with $100 bills and called twice a year, had spent decades running from monsters. And now those monsters were hunting Sarah. I can't do this, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm a 3rd-grade teacher from Boston. I don't know anything about offshore accounts or crime families or... Nathan reached across the console and took her hand. His touch was gentle this time, not urgent. You're stronger than you think. I saw it in the house. You didn't panic. You made a choice and you trusted your instincts. That takes courage. Sarah looked down at their joined hands, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers. What happens now? Now we disappear, Nathan said. I have safe houses in 4 states. Fake IDs, cash, everything we need to stay off the grid until I can figure out what Alexei really wants. And if he catches us? Nathan's eyes darkened, and for the first time, Sarah saw the predator lurking beneath the protector. Then he'll have to go through me. And I promise you, Sarah, that won't be easy. A promise in the dark. They sat in the truck for a long moment, the engine ticking as it cooled, the night pressing close around them. Sarah studied Nathan's face in the dim light. The strong jaw, the scar above his left eyebrow, the intensity in his dark eyes that made her feel both terrified and safe at the same time. Why are you doing this? She asked softly. You could walk away. This isn't your fight anymore. Nathan's thumb brushed across her knuckles, a gesture so tender it made her breath catch. I made a promise to your aunt, and I keep my promises. Even if it gets you killed? Especially then. Sarah didn't know what made her do it. Maybe it was the adrenaline, the fear, the overwhelming sense that her entire life had just been ripped apart. Or maybe it was something else, something about the way Nathan looked at her like she was worth protecting, worth dying for. She leaned across the console and kissed him. It was brief, barely more than a brush of lips, but it sent electricity crackling through her entire body. Nathan went still, his breath hitching. When Sarah pulled back, his eyes were wide with surprise. She started, but he cut her off, cupping her face in his hands and kissing her properly this time. It was desperate and sweet and terrifying all at once. His lips were warm, his touch reverent, and for just a moment, Sarah forgot about the danger, the fear, everything except the feeling of his hands in her hair and his heart beating against hers. The message that changed everything. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. That was. His phone buzzed. Nathan froze. He'd turned it off after they left the estate. Someone had remotely reactivated it. Slowly, he pulled the phone from his pocket and looked at the screen. Sarah watched the color drain from his face. What is it? She whispered. Nathan turned the phone so she could see. A single message glowed on the screen, sent from an unknown number. Hello, Nathan. Tell Sarah her aunt was wrong about one thing. The money isn't buried. It's inside her. And we're coming to cut it out. Love, Alexei. Below the message was a photo, taken less than an hour ago, of the cabin where they were sitting. Taken from the woods. Taken from no more than 50 yards away. Nathan's hand shot to the gun at his hip. Get down. The first bullet shattered the windshield before he could finish the sentence. Resolution, ultimate protection, and suspenseful twist. Glass and gunfire. Sarah screamed as Nathan threw himself across her body, shielding her as bullets punched through the truck's metal frame like it was paper. The windshield exploded into 1,000 glittering fragments. Glass rained down on them, mixing with the deafening crack of gunfire. Out! Now! Nathan roared, kicking open his door and dragging Sarah across the seat. They tumbled out of the truck together, hitting the ground hard. Nathan's arm wrapped around her waist, hauling her behind the vehicle as more shots tore through the night. Sarah's ears rang. Her hands were bleeding from the glass, her nightgown torn and dirty. But she was alive. Nathan had kept her alive. The cabin. Nathan shouted over the gunfire, returning fire with his own weapon. There's a safe room in the basement. Go. I'm not leaving you. Sarah, go. The authority in his voice broke through her terror. Sarah ran, bent low, her bare feet screaming as they hit gravel and pine needles. The cabin door was unlocked. Nathan never locked anything he might need to access in a hurry, and she crashed through it, her hands shaking so badly she could barely turn the deadbolt behind her. Inside her. It's inside her. Alexei's words echoed in Sarah's mind as she stumbled through the dark cabin, searching for the basement door. What did that mean? Inside her? Her aunt had never given her anything except those birthday cards and… Sarah stopped dead. The birthday cards. The ones her aunt had sent every single year since Sarah was born. Thick, expensive cards with elaborate designs. Cards that had always seemed too heavy, too substantial for simple greeting cards. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Outside, the gunfire intensified. Nathan's voice rose in a shout of pain or rage. Sarah couldn't tell which. She had to move. Had to get to safety. But first, she ran to Nathan's bedroom. To the go bag he'd mentioned was always packed and ready. She tore through it with frantic hands until she found what she was looking for. A phone. A burner probably, but it would work. Sarah's fingers flew across the screen as bullets continued to punch through the cabin walls. She called the one person who might understand, might believe her. The lawyer who'd handled her aunt's estate. The hidden fortune. Sarah Mitchell? The lawyer's voice was groggy, confused. It's 3 a.m. The birthday cards, Sarah interrupted, her words tumbling out in a rush. My aunt sent me birthday cards every year. 30 cards. You have them, don't you? In the storage unit with her other personal effects. A pause. Yes, there was a box of correspondence. Why? Check them. Now, between the cardstock layers. There's something hidden there. Account numbers, codes, something. My aunt hid $40 million, and she hid the key inside those cards. Another pause, longer this time. Sarah heard rustling, the sound of a man getting out of bed. Miss Mitchell, are you in danger? Please, Sarah begged. Just check. And call the FBI. Tell them Nathan Cross needs backup at. She rattled off the address Nathan had programmed into the truck's GPS. Tell them Alexei Volkov is here. Tell them to hurry. She hung up before the lawyer could respond. The protectors stand. The gunfire had stopped. The silence was somehow worse. Sarah crept to the window, her heart in her throat, and peered out through a crack in the curtains. In the dim moonlight, she could see Nathan behind the truck, reloading his weapon. Blood soaked his left shoulder, dark and glistening, but he was alive. He was still fighting. 3 bodies lay motionless in the clearing. But 4 more figures were advancing through the trees, spread out in a tactical formation. Professional. Patient. Deadly. And then Sarah saw him, Alexei Volkov himself, stepping out of the shadows like death personified. He was older than in the photo, grayer, but his eyes held the same cold cruelty. He held a gun loosely in one hand, as casual as if he were holding a cigarette. Nathan Cross, Alexei called out, his accent thick and mocking. The FBI agent who failed. The bodyguard who let Catherine slip away. How fitting that you'll die protecting her niece. Nathan said nothing, his weapon trained on Alexei. Give me the girl, Alexei continued, and I'll make your death quick. Painless. A professional courtesy. Come and take her, Nathan growled. Alexei smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. The choice that saves everything. Sarah didn't think. She couldn't afford to. She threw open the cabin door and stepped out into the clearing, her hands raised. I'm here. Sarah, no. Nathan's roar of fury and terror cut through the night, but she ignored him. I'm here, she repeated, walking slowly toward Alexei. Let him go. He doesn't know anything. This is between you and me. Alexei's smile widened. Brave. Just like your aunt. He gestured with his gun, and his men lowered their weapons slightly. Come closer, girl. Let me see Catherine's legacy. Sarah walked forward on trembling legs. Behind her, she heard Nathan struggling to his feet, heard his anguished shout. But she kept walking until she stood 10 feet from Alexei Volkov, the man who'd spent 30 years hunting her family. The money, Alexei said softly. Where is it? Sarah lifted her chin. Hidden. Somewhere you'll never find it. But I'll make you a deal. Alexei's eyebrows rose. A deal? I'll tell you where it is. Everything. The accounts, the codes, all of it. In exchange for Nathan's life. Sarah, don't. Nathan's voice was ragged with pain. Your life for his, Sarah continued, her voice steady despite the terror flooding her veins. I'll tell you everything, and you let him walk away. The FBI's perfect timing. Alexei studied her for a long moment, his eyes calculating. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. Tell me where. The night exploded with light and sound. Helicopters roared overhead, searchlights blazing down on the clearing. Dozens of armed federal agents poured out of the woods, their voices amplified by megaphones. FBI. Drop your weapons. Get on the ground. Alexei spun, his face contorted with rage, but he was surrounded. His men dropped their weapons immediately, hands raised. Only Alexei kept his gun, swinging it wildly between Sarah and the agents. "You set me up," he hissed at Sarah. "No," Sarah said quietly. "My aunt did. 30 years ago. She knew you'd never stop hunting her. So she left breadcrumbs. Evidence. A trail that would lead you right into a trap." Nathan limped to Sarah's side, his good arm wrapping around her waist. "The birthday cards weren't just hiding account numbers," he said, his voice rough but triumphant. "They were also documenting every transaction you made, Alexei. Every murder, every deal, every crime for 30 years. Catherine sent them to Sarah knowing you'd eventually come for her. And when you did, you'd be caught red-handed." Alexei's face went white with understanding. "That's impossible. Catherine Mitchell was smarter than you ever gave her credit for," an FBI agent said, stepping forward with handcuffs. "And she got the last laugh. The truth inside her." Later, as medics treated Nathan's shoulder and agents swarmed the scene, Sarah sat on the cabin's porch steps, wrapped in a blanket. The lawyer had called back, confirming her suspicion. The birthday cards contained meticulously documented evidence, dates, names, transactions, all coded into the elaborate designs. Combined with the offshore account information hidden in the cardstock layers, it was enough to dismantle the entire Volkov organization. Nathan sat down beside her, his shoulder bandaged but his eyes clear. "You shouldn't have walked out there. You would have died," Sarah said simply. "I know." He reached over and took her hand. "Thank you." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. Sarah's entire life had been turned upside down in one night, but somehow, sitting here with Nathan's hand in hers, she didn't feel lost. She felt found. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Nathan smiled. A real smile this time, warm and genuine. "Now? We figure it out together. If you want." Sarah thought about the mansion, the inheritance, the $40 million that would probably be tied up in legal proceedings for years. She thought about her quiet life in Boston, her third-grade classroom, the comfortable routine she'd built. Then she thought about Nathan's lips on hers, his arms around her, the way he'd been willing to die to keep her safe. "Together," she agreed, squeezing his hand. "I want that." 6 months later, the Mitchell Foundation opened its doors on a crisp autumn morning. Sarah stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, wearing a dress that actually fit her instead of a torn nightgown, her hand intertwined with Nathan's. The foundation would help victims of domestic violence escape dangerous situations, a legacy her aunt would have been proud of. Nathan worked as the foundation's security director, using his skills to protect people who needed it most. Sarah had left teaching to run the foundation full-time, finally understanding what her aunt had been trying to tell her all along. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money. It's courage. That evening, as they walked back to their new apartment in Boston, nothing fancy, but safe and warm in theirs, Nathan stopped suddenly. "What is it?" Sarah asked. He pulled a small box from his pocket and Sarah's breath caught. "I know we've only been together 6 months, Nathan said, his voice soft. "I know this is fast. But after everything we've been through, I don't want to waste any more time. Sarah Mitchell, will you?" "Yes," Sarah interrupted, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, yes, yes." Nathan laughed and slipped the ring onto her finger. It was simple, elegant, perfect. Just like the moment. As he kissed her under the streetlight, Sarah felt her aunt's presence somehow, approving, protecting, guiding her toward this future she'd never imagined. The final twist. 3 months later, Sarah received a letter. No return address. Just her name in elegant script. Inside was a single card, a birthday card, though it wasn't her birthday. The design was familiar, the same expensive cardstock her aunt had always used. Sarah's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, in her aunt's handwriting, was a message. "My dear Sarah, if you're reading this, then Alexei finally found you. I'm sorry for the danger I put you in, but I knew you were strong enough to survive it. There's one more thing you should know. The 40 million? That was a decoy. The real fortune is in account 7734, HX 9021 in Geneva. It's worth 300 million and it's all yours. Use it well. Use it to help people. And know that I always loved you, even from a distance. Love, Aunt Catherine." Pissed Nathan is one of the good ones. Don't let him get away. Sarah stared at the letter, then at Nathan, who'd been reading over her shoulder. 300 million, he breathed. Sarah started laughing, then crying, then laughing again. She threw her arms around Nathan's neck and held him tight, feeling the weight of her aunt's love, her aunt's trust, her aunt's final gift. Some protectors carried guns. Some built walls. But the greatest protector of all was love, the kind that reached across years and death itself to keep you safe. And Sarah Mitchell finally understood that she'd been protected all along.